Wheel of Genre, the show for readers who are gently wiping the frost from their fingers, even right now. Right now, we're reading every story in Ann and Jeff VanderMeer's The Weird Anthology, including this one, Haruki Murakami's The Iceman. I'm Zach, and this week I'm really interested in like the South Pole, the myth. What is this place?
McMurdo. I'm Bob. I'm really interested in the weird. We've been noticing lots of being tempted by the weird, being led astray by the weird, becoming obsessed and kind of having your life completely changed. And here we have a very slow, romantic, I guess you could say romance with the weird. So I'm interested in romance.
I'm Chris. Thanks for having me again, guys. It's been a little while. I am interested. I am interested in the line where something is mysterious or if it just falls flat. And I think that that this story really exemplifies that line for me. So
Murakami doesn't step over the line into flatness.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I can't wait to pick apart that. I'm really, really curious on in what ways the story worked for you and in what ways it failed you. But first, guys, I want to know, what is your relationship with Murakami?
My uncle.
Good old Uncle Haruki.
Yes. We go running and looking at cats. I know Chris has read a lot. I've read quite a few, especially in college. That was like the guy everyone was reading. So we had books, open Murakami books, which are, a lot of them are kind of tomes, especially like Wind Up Bird. This is pre-1Q84, but they would always be open and like lying over all of the couches. So everyone at this weird party house that we lived in all read Murakami all the time. So I think I've read at least at least 6, 7. That's unfortunate that I just said that, but I've read 6 or 7 of his books, I think.
I don't think anybody watching this will get that. So
okay, that's good for them. Bully for them.
I was just going to say that, yes, Bob has got it exactly right. My college was the same. I discovered Murakami in my undergrad with this work, and it was like nothing I'd read to that point. Like, it completely scrambled my brain and made me rethink what being a reader was. He became my favorite because of this. And I've voraciously read everything, and I believe that I have read everything by Murakami except for I DNF'd Killing Commendatore, or however you say that word. That one I did not finish. Everything else I have read at least once, and stuff like this I've read. Well, now I think I've read it 4 or 5 times. I loved it. It was, I think this was my introduction into what I call weird fiction, where I was so used to regular horror, maybe some regular sci-fi, and then of course a ton of literature because of school. And then suddenly, and it was assigned to me in a Japanese culture class. And I just, man, we all went nuts for it. Everything that like came out, every time we heard like a story was translated. I remember buying the New Yorker every time there was a Murakami story in it. Like, we went crazy for it. And yeah, it's interesting. I'll save the rest of that for later, but yeah. Well, how did you discover him, Zach?
Well, I think my first time reading him was because in the first year of college, there was a girl I was trying to impress, one of my first girlfriends, and she was a big Murakami fan. So I had to, I of course had to go to the public library and like check out every Murakami book that I could. And I read a lot of them that way. But then in college, I forgot about this. Bob, I don't know if you did this at Portland State University, but there was a Murakami elective in the English department. And somehow or some way,
I didn't take it.
I like finagled it with the academic advisor so that I could take the Murakami class instead of taking Shakespeare, which now I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? But at the time I was like, hell yeah, this is
Better than both.
Chris, I want you said that this was your first introduction to the weird, which is really interesting to me because I did not associate Haruki Murakami with the kind of like weird fiction tradition that we're seeing in this anthology until reading him here and seeing him in this placement.
No, you're right. I would not. I thought he was a weird writer, but weird in the just general sense. No, I always associated him with magical realism. That's kind of what I always, the category I always heard him placed in. But I do think, and it's strange because when I started my channel, one of the first things I wanted to do was talk about Hard-Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World as a genre piece, as a science fiction fantasy piece, instead of this idea of magical realism. I really wanted to tackle Murakami from a different genre perspective. And I think that's exactly what this weird is asking us to do is say, wait, does Murakami fall into this? And I question their choice. I really do. I would love to talk to Ann and Jeff VanderMeer and figure out what it was about this particular story that they thought exemplified the weird so much, when I feel, and this just might be personal to me, that like this exact same book has the story A Shinagawa Monkey in it, which to me would have been a perfect representation of Haruki Murakami writing the weird. I don't know why they chose this one. It's a deep track that I never would have thought would be the one they'd choose to put into this.
A B-side.
Yeah.
Let's summarize it quickly, and then we can go in and see if we think, because I'm kind of feeling the same way. It feels like it's hitting one note, but let's see what other people think too. It's Iceman, and it begins, apparently Murakami's wife had a dream about an Iceman, so Murakami decided to write this story. The Iceman is described as this: young, though offset by white strands, like patches of leftover snow, mixed in among his stiff, wiry head of hair. He was tall, his cheeks were sharply chiseled like frozen crags, his fingers covered with frost that looked like it would never, ever melt. This narrator falls in love with this Iceman. They meet at a ski lodge, I believe, and he is not skiing because he's an Iceman, and Icemen do not ski. He has no family history. He doesn't know where he's from. Icemen seem to look into your soul and see you just as clearly as if they're looking through ice, and they know everything about you. So the Iceman seems to know everything about her. He can tell her nothing about himself. Still, they get married, and their marriage is fraught with just, I guess, disapproval. No one seems to support this marriage. No one wants her to be with an Iceman. He's cold. No one goes to her marriage. Her family stops talking to her. She becomes more and more isolated because of this marriage, and they eventually decide, we need to freshen up the marriage. Let's go to the South Pole. When the Iceman hears this, he stares at her with such like intensity that she feels she's made a huge mistake, and she just doesn't know why. When they reach the South Pole, she feels he has become a different Iceman altogether, someone completely different. So their marriage seems to be a new marriage altogether. Of course, when they get there, it's the South Pole, and he says, well, we can't leave now because there's too much snow. The plane cannot take off. So they're stuck there for 3 months until she realizes she's actually stuck there forever. And she becomes pregnant with an ice baby. She starts to become an ice woman herself. And I believe that's just the final note that we're left with in the Iceman.
So as you're reading this, like, how did you receive it? Like, yeah, it's framed in a weird anthology, but as you read it, did you feel like this was playing into horror? Was it tragic? Was it an allegory for something? Like, how did you see this aside from just being like a weird figure that she's romancing?
To me, it's tragic. It's a romance that doesn't. I mean, it works. It's happily ever after. Except now, there's been such a deep transformation that she's become an ice person. In some ways, that feels like some of the weird stories that we've read, where you slowly transform into an axolotl. You transform into some ghost-like thing. You transform into someone obsessed with something else. Here, she can never go back. So there is the idea of that threshold in these weird stories where you can maybe cross over, cross back, or stuff from the weird starts to cross over that threshold as you are tempted by it. Here, though, she slowly freezes, and once frozen, she can't unfreeze. So it's a weird as tragedy, I think.
And there is a kind of physical transformation that happens there too, in the sense that before, they were trying to have a baby together. She wanted a baby with the Iceman, but she said it's just not working. Maybe there's some kind of genetic differences between, human people and Icemen or something like that. But then at the end, after she goes to the South Pole, she gets pregnant. So you have to wonder if some sort of total physical transformation has taken place in her too, not just a kind of like mental, emotional, spiritual,
Doesn't she mention at the end that she's starting to form frost on her fingers? Yeah, I think there is absolutely a physical. I think by the end they're an ice family. And I know the baby's not born yet, but yeah, they're going to be a nice family. And she even says, like, I realized we're never leaving. Like they are going to be South Pole ice people for forever after this point. Yeah, it's weird because my first thought was, and this is obviously the training that college has given me. My first thought was, okay, this is a statement on Japanese marriage practices. The fact that he couldn't say where he's from, and she was like, we don't even know where he was born or who his family is. How are we going to tell your parents this or whatever? All of it was pointing to the kind of cultural norms, I think, of how Japanese marriage can work, especially like the idea of arranged marriage, which is not as popular as it used to be, but was pretty popular, I think, even up to when I was in Japan in the 2000s. You didn't have to do that, but people still did do that. So yeah, I think my first thought was to read it as that, but I don't know. I feel like no matter which way I came at this story, it fell flat for me. It fell flat for me. This is not my favorite Murakami story. And I think, and I've been wrestling with myself, trying to figure out how to express this. I feel like when Murakami's mystery works, it is absolutely incredible and will transport you to another land. And when it doesn't work, it seems stilted and forced. And this felt stilted and forced to me, because if he was trying to, like, right away, we're introduced to this concept of the Iceman. And my first thought is does he work with ice there at the ski resort? No, he's an actual Iceman. So actual ice people exist in this world, and it's not a big deal, right? They're just another type of person that exists in this world. And then we're given the physics of the universe in the sense that the Iceman can never look into the future. Right? He is stuck looking at the past. So at one point when they're first talking, he asks his soon-to-be wife asks him, "Can you see my future?" And he says, "No." And this makes perfect sense, right? The Iceman is trapped in seeing things from the past as if they're trapped in ice. I loved it. That's a great metaphor. That's a cool idea. I thought it worked very well. But we're presented right after that with the idea that he can't talk about himself, which for me kind of breaks the physics, because it's like, no, he should also know his own past as crystal clear because he's been frozen in that. I don't know. Every angle I tried to come at this, I didn't even really find it that romantic. And maybe it was because he was telling it in such a no-nonsense fashion. There was no whimsy I felt in the prose for this at all. It was just so direct and matter of fact, which is what Murakami's known for. I mean, that's one of the things that we loved about him. That's why everybody fell in love with him, you know, in the 2000s in college and stuff, is because he would have the weirdest crap happen in a most matter-of-fact way. And all of his characters would just go along with it. But in this case, yeah, the mystery didn't land for me. I didn't understand the Iceman. I didn't understand their relationship. And I didn't catch any magical whimsy from any of it. Yeah, the whole thing just not my favorite Murakami, which is too bad.
Very chilly review there, Chris.
Mm-hmm. And I love Murakami. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
I agree with you quite a bit that he's an enigmatic figure. It's not romantic. There's no whimsy, but there is something that I thought was really, really mysterious about it and him, the situation in general, that I actually did like it. I'm gonna be the guy to defend it on this video. But part of what I liked it was that at first I was trying to read an allegory into it, but I, like you, it just doesn't work. It doesn't feel right as like a comment on any one thing. Japanese marriages in general, love, maybe two people in a relationship and how they have to change, or one person can. It just doesn't feel right. But I started thinking of him less as like, well, what if he doesn't mean any one thing? And what is like ice as a symbol, you know? And symbols, you can't exhaust them. You know what I mean? Like, so for example, if I have a stop sign, it just means stop. It's a one-to-one sign. But if you have like the sun, you know, as we, you know, see in Yukio Mishima's work, you know, the sun has an infinite number of meanings that it could symbolize at any one time. And it's the dissonance between all those meanings that kind of makes it interesting and inexhaustible. So I started thinking about Iceman, and particularly ice, as a symbol in this kind of way. And I found it to be, it kind of changed for me from being a flat story to being a very mysterious story. And I think that a lot of what happens in here plays into that. So this idea that like he can only see the past. Okay, well, that seems to imply that he has no access to the future. He has no future, you could even say. So what is only in the past? What has a perfect knowledge of the past but no future? Well, there's death, for one. You know, death transforms life into something that is only an object in the past. So it's like, is he a kind of like deathly figure in her life? Does his presence in her life, you know, as it transforms her, how is that like a drop of death in her life? And then there's other, you know, ideas with the ice, like, I don't know, like kind of melancholy. He seems to be kind of like a melancholic figure. He goes to work. He doesn't seem to really want to work at the warehouse or love the warehouse. It seems almost like he's just kind of putting on a performance of working at the warehouse, or just in the sense of like, oh, he's the boss's favorite guy. He's not authentically working. I don't know. There's just some aspect of the Iceman which feels like not real and yet real at the same time, including his mysterious past and his kind of like change of character when he returns to the Iceland. I don't know. I don't have this, you know, I don't have this story fully figured out. I don't have a full like account I can give you of what it all means, but I do think that there is mystery here that is worth kind of picking apart and exploring.
Yeah, it's funny. Whenever anybody tries to tack down why Murakami's good or why a Murakami story is good, they always end up with that final statement. I don't know, but there's something there, because it is so hard to describe. When it works for you, it is so hard to describe, because I read him as just cold because he's an Iceman. It seemed very simplistic, like he's robotic because he's ice, so he has no emotion. Yeah, Bob, sorry. You haven't had a chance yet.
No. Well, that's quite all right. I was thinking what's cooler than being cool. Ice cold. But sorry. Yes, I think it is kind of flat because there is one idea. It's like he's getting stuck into the idea. You said this earlier, Chris. There's the concept of he's an Iceman, so he's cold, so his job is in an ice factory, and so his relationship is cold, and so every day is cold. But I think there are some interesting aspects to their relationship, especially his kindness. I think his kindness is very tragic. By the end, she's saying that she's become ice, like you said earlier, and she says she has icy tears welling up endlessly in our little frozen home in the far-off South Pole. But the Iceman never becomes cruel, never says a mean word, never does anything that would seem rude or cruel. But she says once they reach the South Pole, and it really starts earlier than that, after that first stare when she says, let's go back to the South Pole. But she says, the husband here at the South Pole is not the husband that I used to know. I couldn't say how he'd changed exactly, for he was still always thoughtful, always had kind words for me. And I knew he sincerely meant the things he said, but I also knew that the Iceman before me was not the Iceman I'd met first at the ski resort. But who was I going to complain to? Because she's at the South Pole, she doesn't speak anyone's language, she is isolated, so isolated there, and the transformation has not begun. But I think there's something tragic about the very character of this iciness that is still so kind, so polite, and so thoughtful. And yet there's something, if you go to the bottom of it, it still seems empty. It feels like that ice cap that she keeps envisioning when they do their thing in the bedroom. She imagines this faraway ice cap to the very edges of the world, and that seems to be their relationship.
Yeah.
I like that word. Ice-elated. Okay.
Is she ice-elated or is she isolated?
Man, I wish they would have chose
this.
I wish they would have chose the Shinagawa monkey for this one. The conversation we'd be having right now. Yeah, it's strange. I don't have a lot to say about this one. I just don't. I feel like if he would have taken longer, that maybe we could have felt the South Pole a little more. I think that this is far too truncated and short to allow Murakami to really do what he does with his prose in longer works, where the mystery just deepens and deepens and deepens. This one, it's like ice in that it's frozen and unmoving all the way through. And I think we do start to see some of this Murakami brilliance through a little bit of his prose in this. For instance, the part you were just talking about, Bob, where he started changing even before they went to the South Pole. It starts with a glare. When she says, let's go to the South Pole, he stares at her in a way that feels like an icicle piercing into her brain. And then she tries to respond to him, and she cannot respond because that icicle in her brain froze her brain. So she's unable to respond or think past that. And right at that moment, I was like, okay, here is Murakami starting to really explore into this in such a way that will make people say, I don't know why this is amazing, but this is amazing. But it to me, it gets back to this matter of fact tone right after that, and doesn't really allow any of that to sit. Yeah, I don't know, because my first thought when I was younger, I thought the thicker the book, the better the Murakami, which is really strange, but I really did think that. And IQ 84 came out, and that stopped being the case for me.
It drags.
But what it meant is that I didn't care for his short fiction as much as I did for his longer fiction. But there are short fiction stories by Murakami that I absolutely love. Have you guys read The Second Bakery Attack?
Oh, yeah, that one's great.
Oh, man, what a great story. This newly married, speaking of an analogy of new marriage, just incredible story of this cursed couple that have to find a way to break this curse of responsibility. It's really wonderful. And yeah, this one just, I didn't find the depth to it. And I don't know. I felt like he was confined by the concept and couldn't allow himself to just go where he wanted to go. I don't know. I have no idea. It's Murakami. I don't know.
There's no cooking and no beer and no jazz.
There was a post on Library Thing. I think that's what that website's called. It came up when I Googled this story, but someone pointed out on there that this story, and many of the weird stories, but this story in particular, kind of follows along the same logic as a joke. And I thought that was really, really interesting because, like you said, it starts. He has a concept and then he just kind of does his thing. But like with the joke, it's like there's always something that is kind of impossible that happens. So like the example they gave was a horse walks into a bar. So there's the break with reality, and then we're kind of forced to go step by step back to the normal rules of reality to see how this strange thing plays out. You know what I mean? So it's like in here, the horse walking to the bar is, I met an Iceman at the ski resort. What? And then from that moment, we kind of resume the normal laws of the universe. And we're kind of in this kind of fatalistic track towards its inevitable end.
That is really interesting because you're right. Murakami likes a witty first line. And I think that this is a perfect example of him trying really hard for a witty first line. But it is interesting to say that it reads funny instead of mysterious. 'Cause I kind of think that's true. I was like, what kind of Iceman? Like, yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. That's really interesting. My question would be, what's the punchline then? Or is it just the joke logic of the beginning of the joke?
Like anti-comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like but doctor, I am Uglione, the clown. But doctor, I'm now the ice woman.
The clown joke. Oh my God.
Yep.
This being in the weird collection, even though there's no cats, and he doesn't talk about running, it's disappointing. But he does talk a lot about time, and I feel like the way time and space interact or affect us is really important in the weird. And here we've talked about, okay, he can't see the future, but he can see the past. And the way that this weird entity affects her obviously turns her into an ice woman, but the transformation is quite slow for her, and she starts to have this dream. After the icicles, go into her eyes, her brain freezes, she realizes something has gone very bad, and she can see that tragic future. So she's the one who sees tragedy steadily moving on, and the Iceman never sees that tragedy moving on. She starts to have dreams, though. And she says that she has the same dream every night. She's walking somewhere, and she says, when I fall into a deep hole, nobody finds me and I freeze solid. I'm frozen inside the ice, gazing up at the sky. I'm conscious, but I can't even move a finger. It's such a weird feeling. With each passing moment, I'm becoming part of the past. There is no future for me, just the past steadily accumulating. Everybody is watching this happening to me. They're watching the past, watching as I slip further and further away. We've seen the way past can slow down, the way past can exist outside of the present and affect the present in different ways, and the ways that it can kind of co-opt the future. Here it's interesting how she is trapped in this block of ice. We are an audience watching her past just kind of ebb away from her. I think the weird can show us different ways time can affect us, and I think even though this story is a little bit of a one note, there is an interesting relationship between her and time here.
Yeah, I think a lot of Murakami stuff seems to me like a riddle. And solving the riddle is really fun. When I first read Hard Boiled and I read the last page and closed the book, I immediately flipped it over and started rereading it and marking every example of recurring objects in both worlds. And I made this map that showed how the one world was affecting the other. And it's probably some of the most enjoyable reading I've ever done. I think when that really works with Murakami, it's amazing. I think you found the riddle but I don't know if there's an answer at the end of that riddle. So is she giving up I assume she's giving up the future by becoming an ice woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I assume that's represented by the hole with her staring up and slowly freezing.
Mm-hmm.
The riddle's good. I just become very frustrated when I can't solve what it's connected to. What is it? So
We've
what's the
been sphinxed.
statement? Yeah, what's the statement that Murakami is making? Because you're right. If we just try to say, it's about marriage and the cultural norms of marriage, then the end of this is her parents were right. She should have stayed away from him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the final thought. And I don't think that's what Murakami meant. I don't think that's what he meant at all. Especially not when we look at his other stories about marriage that say completely different things, like the second bakery attack. So I don't know. I like the hole. I like the ice. It just seems like, to me, a floating image without connection to anything else. And maybe you guys connected it somehow. I did not.
Maybe I would say this might be the reason why Ann and Jeff VanderMeer picked it for inclusion in the Weird Anthology, because I guess this question would be directed more towards Bob. Bob, how many of these stories that we've read in here feel like they have a quick and easy meaning, or feel like the author is making a statement about something? I would argue very few, and I would argue that Jeff and Ann VanderMeer seem to think that that's characteristic of the weird with a capital W in many ways. So maybe that's why it's being it was picked for inclusion in this volume.
The unsolved riddle.
That could be. Yeah. And maybe I just need to read it more times. I mean, it's weird. It's like modern art. It's like when you see that paint splashed all over the canvas, people that can't make an interpretation of what it means will hate it and think it's pretentious, but some people will see it and be able to make an interpretation and love it and think that it's absolutely brilliant. I don't know. Maybe this canvas didn't work for me, but it's funny because I think stories that are probably very similar to this by Murakami have worked for me. So I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting because I don't want people to think that the joy I get out of reading a story is being able to academically break it down for its meaning, because that's not it entirely. I don't know. Let's talk about The Willows, another story from this
Great story.
anthology by Algernon Blackwood. The fun that I had at the end of that story, trying to decide if they had somehow stepped off of Earth onto a different planet, was so much fun. The story of the cats by the other Japanese author that we read in this book.
Oh, yeah.
That was a riot trying to figure out, where in time this city of cats was. That's, I think, the fun that I mean, is trying to, the mystery of the weird overtaking you and leaving you with a million possibilities. And maybe Murakami did a perfect job in this one because it left me cold. And maybe that's the answer. You know what I mean? I didn't get to have the fun of going, where are these Icemen? Who was the first? Are these like integrated into society with people? Like, it was so matter of fact that I just was like, okay, then that's just that. That's just a tragic story and a warning. Don't marry ice people because they're terrible. I'm being a little facetious, of course, but you get the idea, right? I don't know.
Yeah. I think I understand where you're coming from a lot better now, to be honest, because it's like, yeah, I agree with you with the stories you mentioned. It's like your imagination spirals outward and the world feels like it has more possibility. Like, could there be a town of cats? Or if I took a boat down the Danube, could I stop on an island where the trees are not trees? You know what I mean? Like, it creates this kind of like feeling that the real world is maybe larger and bigger than you could ever possibly expect. This one, I mean, maybe I could argue that it kind of made me want to check out the South Pole, but it's not the same thing. It's like really not the same thing. And for me, what I liked about this was that it made me think about the psychology of the Iceman, who he is, what he means, what the ice did to the relationship, whether he was contaminating her or whether there was a trade-off, a mutual contamination, things like that. But that's not the same thing as what you're describing.
Yeah.
Like that, I was like fundamentally trying to analyze this versus kind of letting it change me and change my relationship to the world. I don't think this story did that in the same way that those other stories you mentioned did.
I think this has become a big question for Zach and I as we've been progressing through. I think this is like in the 80s at this point. We're moving towards the 90s now in the weird. And one concern that we have is, are they becoming formulaic? Are they losing some kind of energy that the past once had, especially Blackwood, the Willows? There seems to be more of a fascination with the occult. There seems to be more of a fascination with just mystery, as you've said, Chris. Here, it feels like it's a formula. It feels like it's just the story steadily trundling forward because that's what it should do. But I would think, too, there's no doubt. In some of the stories that we've been reading, there's no doubt. And I think doubt is very important in the weird. Could this really be happening? Is the universe really eating our universe up? Am I really becoming obsessed with this thing? Will I really get these powers? The doubt seems to be leaving some of these weird stories. And that's one concern that we have. Are we moving towards a weird that has already solved itself? A weird that is just going through the motions of being weird. And this story kind of feels like it's a story just going through the motions. Here's my idea. We're going to carry it to a good literary conclusion. But that doubt of the narrator, the doubt of the character, and the kind of mystery that comes with that doubt seems to be leaving some of these stories.
Oh, well said. And I'm obsessed with the history of the weird. So that is really interesting. Because I feel like, and I just talked about this because I went and saw The Backrooms the other night. And that is like straight up a weird tale. I mean, it's weird fiction on film, in my opinion. So I just made a video saying that we're kind of in a weird renaissance. So we've got Annihilation by Jeff VanderMeer, which I think is one of the best weird stories. And I think it has everything you just described as those early weird tales having. And we have The Fisherman by, what's his name? John Langan. That one, I don't know if you guys have read The Fisherman. No. Oh man, it's good. Really good. Cool. Modern weird. There's others that I'm going to not think of right now, but I'm interested in seeing, as I watch your guys' videos, if there is a lag in the 90s and it's solved itself, like you said, Bob. I wonder when that will pop, when you'll start to see the Renaissance ramp up. Because I think you will. I don't know what year this anthology ends, but I hope you will see it start to ramp back up.
2010. It ends in 2010. I just checked it. I'll tell you.
That's pretty early.
I'll say one thing, because I tend to edit the episodes like a week or two after we record them, sometimes a little bit more. What I notice is that for the early stories in the anthology, I'm constantly thinking about them. Yesterday I pulled a zucchini out of the fridge and I thought, the vegetable man, like this could be someone's fingers, but then with these newer stories, especially as we go into the 90s, like I download the video files and I pop them into the video editor and I'm like, what was this story? I don't even remember reading this like 2 weeks ago, sorry, authors we've read recently, who many of which are still alive today. I'm sorry if you hear me say that, but a lot of them just don't. They seem to kind of just wash over me like water, and they don't leave this kind of same emotional impact. And this one might be the same. I don't know. Only time will tell just how impactful the Iceman was. Yeah,
it's interesting to me, but I think that the short story died for a little while. I think Stephen King in the 80s moved everybody into the 90s to be novel obsessed. And I still get booktubers that are like, why would I read short stories? And it shocks me because so much of my content is really pop and short, economy of language, badass stories. But I think for a while, the novel completely overshadowed the short story to where people would have short story collections, but they were afterthoughts. And I feel like Murakami's one of them. Everybody was waiting for the novels, not as much as the short stories. And I hear people talking about the novels all the time. I don't hear people talking, like maybe Tony Takatani, people talk about that, but that's kind of a novella. But yeah, I feel like, this might not just be the weird. This might be the short story in general. That I think if you had any anthology that was along these same routes, or the same historical dates, you might see that dip happen anyway, because of Stephen King, man. Stephen King made Bloat the thing. It's crazy.
The thing.
I think he did. And I think that everybody followed. I think that, I remember in the 80s and 90s, like I remember buying it and I was so excited because of how fat it was, because I knew I had weeks of Stephen King ahead of me and I was so excited. And now I look at it and I'm like, good Lord, like, calm down, Stephen King. Like, seriously, like, that's your weird story, and you made it 1,000 pages. Like Algernon Blackwood did his in novellas. What is going on here? Yeah. So I think that I don't know. It's interesting to me that people loved really long work, and then the 90s kind of killed the short story. And then the internet came out and that kind of killed novel reading. And now people are starting to look back at the idea of a short story, being able to sit for just an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and just have something amazing and kick ass happen, and then be able to close it and be finished with it. I don't know. It's all very interesting to me, but I think that dip is going to be across the board personally.
Chris, based on what you're saying, I'm really curious about this, because now we always lament, like, okay, the kids today, they just have short form content. Their brains are being unwired ravel by ravel, synapsis by synapsis, because of that TikTok, threads. That's not a video. Never mind. Just TikTok.
6'7".
6'7". Yes. Every time I do this now, but
6 or 7
every time. There's no like, on this hand, on the other hand, it's always 6'7" now. But what do you think? Because we're always talking about how people can only handle the shortest content now, 1 to 2 minutes. But I don't think that stories are coming back. I feel like now people are still only purchasing novels. There might be booktube content where readers who are really devoted to reading a lot of one author, or whose bread and butter is short stories. But I think the people who are the most famous, the people are buying like the big books. They want to put the big books on their shelves. They want to show that they have big books. And I think the novel is still the only, right now, commercial success. Do you think this short story will come back, or is it coming back? Am I not noticing this guerrilla trend?
My first response is you should watch my kid binge an anime series and talk about attention span. I mean, seriously. I don't necessarily buy into the curmudgeon-y, like it's weird. I've seen my daughter devour a Wikipedia page on, a specific disease that she has heard about randomly, and she'll take 2 or 3 hours. Then she'll go on YouTube and watch videos about it. And then, she'll be able to tell me all about it. I think everything looks different, but I don't know if I buy into the idea that we're losing our, it's just what grabs you. Look at Harry Potter. Like kids that were like, I hated reading, and then they read a series that's like that fat on the shelf. You know what I mean? But short story. I'm trying to think of examples of short, like Ted Chiang's.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, that one that became a rival.
Yeah.
I forgot what it's called, but anyway, I believe. See, it's very hard for me to disconnect myself from the YouTube booktubers that I'm surrounded by, that all love the thinner novels, and thinking about the people that I went to school with when I was studying literature. You know what I mean? It was like nobody complained about length, probably because you would instantly be judged if you did.
Can't read a book.
Why are you in this field? Yeah, that is a great question. I think the problem with a short story, oh my gosh, is that you can't publish it the same way you can a book. People won't pay $25, but there is a press that's doing short stories, just pamphlet by pamphlet, that I love. So I hope that becomes a thing, but it has to be cheaper. You know what I mean? It has to be cheaper. I don't know. Yeah, I think that question goes all the way to how selling books works, what people are willing to pay for. I hope short stories come back. I hope it becomes an art again. I really do. And I don't know how to answer it other than that.
Well, short stories are so ephemeral, right? Like I feel like people aren't buying magazines in the same way they used to buy like weird tales at the newsstand. So it's like a lot of times when I hear about a short story, it's because it's gone like soft viral, it's published online and then the link is shared and passed around other people. So it's like there's the same kind of ephemerality between a short story and like a tweet, that goes viral or is screen capped and is sent around to people. So it's like, it's going to be, I would say that kind of way that it's being consumed is the first big challenge to short stories coming back in print. Because if it's something that you just read it one time or a couple times and the next week you're onto the other thing, are you incentivized to buy that and put it on your shelf in the same way as you are like Stephen King's It, like something that you sit with, that you have to sit with. And then once you're done, it's it's a cultural reference point, because it is so large, people look at it and say, oh yeah, I've read that, oh yeah, that's one of my favorite Stephen King's, but it's a real tough when an author has 100 different short stories. How do you find that connection with other people if they've read a completely different slice of the author's work?
Yeah, it's weird to me because sometimes booktubers will read a collection of short stories and do a video on the entire collection. Oh. And for some odd reason, that feels really strange to me. Like every time I make a video, I'm only giving myself one topic. And that is whatever story or novel I read, if that makes sense. Because I even like I would prefer a ton of these little pamphlets to go on my shelf than to have a full collection that I loved one story from. You know what I mean? It seems like cramming a lot of ideas. And you're right, I don't. And it's interesting because I have one story with the Kindle. I got the Kindle when it first came out, and it's because my ex-wife my wife at the time was very interested in minimalism. So right when the Kindle came out, that first Paperwhite, I think it was called, where you had to actually get a light to light up the screen so you could read it, she bought me one of those, and then the next day, all my books were gone to Goodwill, which was a huge fight, but, but I tried to use the Kindle for a while, and I used it for about probably 6 months. And one day on Facebook, one of my buddies from my past was like, hey, there's this guy who's giving out a free science fiction story if you have a Kindle. And I was like, okay, give me the free science fiction story. So I went and I clicked on the link and I downloaded the free science fiction story and I read it, and it was great. It was this weird story about people underground and whether or not they could or could not go out. It turned out it was Wool by Hugh Howey. When he self-published that story, he just gave it away. And this was before it was even a novel. He just gave it away. And I just took it on my Kindle because on the Kindle, there's no concept of what's on your shelf. Right? Yeah. So I think maybe that could be like a magazine that people could just read 6 or 7 random stories on their Kindle without trouble. Yeah, I don't know. But you're right. It's weird. Weird Tales, I don't know if it is right exactly at this moment, but Weird Tales, last I heard, is still going on. Mm-hmm. It's still coming out. Mm-hmm. And I have no idea where I would buy it, nor have I ever tried. Mm-hmm. And if somebody like forced me to figure out why, I guess my answer would be, I don't like modern fiction as much as old fiction. Like, I don't know. I bet you there's awesome stories in Weird Tales that we're missing. I'll bet you there is. I don't know why I don't have magazines coming into my house. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird.
Hey, well, maybe this is a good opportunity for anyone watching this right now who does subscribe to magazines, who is up on the most recent weird fiction. If you have, a magazine you want to shout out, let us know. And, we'll keep track of that and check them out. But in the meanwhile, talk to you later, Bob and Chris.
Talk to you later, Chris and Zach.
Talk to you later, Zach and Bob.